Perfect. So thank you so much for joining me today. Excited to see folks coming from afar quite a bit. So that's very exciting. We had a quick survey on the way in. What's the level of Drupal comfort? And we've got this mix of like super experts and a few newcomers here. So if you're super new to Drupal, welcome. We are super excited to have you here. Just if you think about Drupal as a content management system that's really good at organizing structured information and data and integrating things with. I think that's all you really need to know to get something out of today's talk. I am on LinkedIn and on the Drupal Slack fairly actively. So if you have any questions or ideas or just want to chat and reach out, please connect with me on LinkedIn or on Slack. Let's dive into it. Perfect. So I'm Aidan. I run a digital agency that focuses on UX research for building AI-enabled B2B and higher ed websites. And of course, as Pierre mentioned, Pierre and I are some of the organizers for the AI Drupal Toronto meetup. So again, if you're from afar, we'd love to see you 2 meetups from now. If you live close, I'd love to see you in Toronto in January. I also want to mention that Foster Interactive has joined the Drupal AI Makers, which Pierre mentioned. And really what this is a group of 22 agencies who each commit funding and 6 months of developer time, either a half-time developer or a full-time developer for 6 months. And our goal is to make AI a first-class AI product. And with all the goodness of open source, right? You're not locked in to any particular vendor or any particular LM provider, or you could roll your own with an open source one. And because of this, we're competing with large, deep-pocketed, well-funded organizations. And so the strategy here is really to work together to have a focused product vision that aligns all these contributing groups. And what we'll be seeing today is a direct result of that initiative. So I'm very proud and excited to be a part of it. So I was part of the team that worked on the Driesnote demo, the DrupalCon Vienna demo. And if you've seen it, or if not, you will see some examples of this kind of work today, where it really truly looks like robots are doing all this work, right? You put in a prompt and it builds this beautiful page out. And I just want to emphasize that that is not the case of how it actually works. AI works as a remarkable assistant, but it's the human work, the brainstorming, the user research, the workshops, all that stuff that goes into the AI that actually makes it very useful. And that's those subject matter expertise you can't rely on from AI on its own. You have to create that and put it into the system for it to be useful. So if you leave today's talk with just one thing, one takeaway, I want you to remember to focus on people first, or else you're going to get AI slop. So the session today, we'll talk about some new Drupal features. We'll talk about the marketer's AI use case, what's under the hood, and how to get some good output. So to start, what's really exciting is some of these new Drupal features that have come together and evolved over the last little while. And when combined together, this enables really exciting AI-powered page building. So that comes with site templates, Drupal Canvas, the AI Context Control Center, and AI autonomous agents. These are sort of the ingredients that, when mixed together, gives us this very exciting AI page building experience. So Drupal site templates is a new structure where you can basically install Drupal and add in a site template. And it gives you a whole theme. It gives you a whole structure. We've got all this kind of content, the navigation, all these pieces just come out of the box when you install it. And there's work being done on what's called a site template marketplace. So it's kind of like Squarespace or one of those SaaS-based website builders, where you can browse around and see a selection of different types of websites, right? For different types of businesses or organizations, pick one, install it, and you get all this stuff sort of out of the box. So that includes within each of those site templates a component-based design system. So, the cards, the components, the accordions, all those elements are sort of baked into that theme. In the example we'll look at today is based off of the Mercury theme design system. You also get a number of features sort of bundled up together. So an example of that might be you might be able to get news posts or events listings, or if it was a restaurant website, it would be like menu items, that kind of thing comes pre-installed out of the box with these. And then finally, you need demo content. And all of this is really important for people to get started quickly in Drupal so you can see stuff, work with it, and especially in the AI page building experience, sort of start from a place and then maybe work from there to expand out your website content. The next feature that's very exciting is called the Canvas editor. You might have heard about this in the past. It's being described as experience builder. There was some copyright stuff with the name, but what it lets you do is log in and quickly edit your page. On the left there, I've opened up panels to show the heading component, and then you just sort of live edit within there, and it alters your content, updates immediately. You can drag and drop your components around within the layout. You can create variations. What's super exciting is there's undo. For every step that I'm doing here, you could jump back all those steps. Currently, I'm deleting one of the cards in the grid and just reflowing the layout from 4 columns to 3 columns. So it allows you to edit in an intuitive way really quickly and then have sort of a versioned history in the past. The next feature is called the AI Context Control Center. And this is a document repository of basically rules that you author about your organization. So I've got product features, benefits, and testimonials as one kind of document package. Another might be how to make nice landing pages. And what it does is it makes these rules and this context available to different AI agents that do different things in Drupal. We'll look at this again later in the presentation in detail. So let's talk about the example in the Dries node. And this was very specifically focused on making Drupal's experience better for marketers. Drupal as a project has been developer-led in the past and been very good at making tools that are useful and exciting for developers. But there's this barrier to entry for folks who are a little less technical. And so a lot of the work that's going on as a part of the Drupal AI Initiative and the Drupal AI makers is to make this accessible to a broader audience. And so as a part of the Dries node, we really wanted to figure and focus on a scenario that actually solves marketers' problems. So we work with, at Foster Interactive, a lot of different types of teams, different marketing teams. And B2B clients and higher ed clients both have very different missions in what their organizations are trying to accomplish, but their marketing and comms teams have very common core challenges. Right out of the box, they have many responsibilities these days. They might need to release newsletters. They might need to do updates on the website, create paper campaigns, run events, and this list is long and pretty much always grows as time goes on. And I often find those teams don't, it's not like a new person gets added on for social media. The existing team is expected to do social media in addition to whatever they were doing before. So because of this, they have a finite in-house expertise. So there's parts of these tasks they do that are really in their core wheelhouse and parts of them that are maybe they're a little bit less experienced with. And no one can really do everything. And because of this, they're constantly short on time and working against tight deadlines. So it's very difficult for them to keep things like your website up to date when you have all these other pressures on your time. So we needed to create a realistic scenario that at least is representative of the client work we do for the Dries node. And so we ended up working with the theme that came with the Drupal CMS 2 prototype. That's the basis of the Dries node demo. And it includes a theme called Mercury. And Mercury had already been developed and was well in progress. And the idea is a theme for a software as a service company. And so we wanted to sort of continue within that storyline. and that it is a virtual credit card company and expense tracking platform. And so that idea became the basis of this realistic sort of marketing example in there. So we eventually settled on that name, FinDrop, and it was funny because it was hard to pick a fake company name that didn't already exist in the fintech space, because every name in existence has already been used. And so we ended up creating these example artworks as an idea to be representative of this virtual credit card company. And to sort of make this realistic again, I ended up looking at real companies that are out there that do this idea of virtual credit cards and expense tracking, and then just quickly jammed out some ideas of imagery that visually represent the problems that kind of company solves. So this is meant to be, the chaos of zillions of transactions go into the app, and then they become ordered as they come out. We also needed to make sure that the imagery we created matched the Mercury theme, which had this kind of cool dark mode techie vibe. So the imagery that goes into the theme needs to match that brand as well. And so we ended up creating a number of different types of imagery. This is all created in Nano Banana. And this kind of imagery is meant to represent the value proposition of this product, right? So the left image could be, you could easily spin up, virtual credit cards, an infinite number of credit cards for your team. The center is like, hey, it integrates with every, commerce platform in existence, or every bookkeeping platform in existence. And on the right, this is a really common scenario in sort of B2B tech stuff, where you end up making like a research report of some type, and then that gets published as a book. It's probably actually never physically printed, but sold as and marketed as an authoritative research report. And people use that to get in front of and attention from people who might not be aware of a product, and we use it to attract them, and they start becoming aware of the product. So as we were working through all this with this dark imagery, it felt like really heavy and intense with just this very dark mode kind of approach. So we ended up creating a series of AI model images, which this is representative of our model, who we eventually named Cindy, using the app in different contexts to again represent the idea that the product would solve, right? So we'd be racking up expenses for our team all around the world, and it becomes very difficult to track expenses. And so I just wanted to comment on my experience with using Nano Banana. Was super impressive. It certainly has its quirks that's in here, but again, I sort of jammed out what the UI might look like in this app, and then get the model to be consistent with this reasonably consistent rendering of Cindy using the app in different contexts, and then asking it, here's a research report cover, can you show her reading it in these different scenarios? And so what was amazing about this from my experience was the consistency with which Nano Banana, it's GPT Flash 2.5 is its official name, but nickname Nano Banana, was able to produce this consistent quality of imagery. And I was able to produce all of the stuff that we've been looking at in like 2 days or something, which is wild. That would not have been sort of feasible in the past. So what do we do with all this imagery, and what's the scenario that's realistic again? And the key thing that a lot of marketers need to do is to make pay-per-click campaigns. And so how it works from a marketing point of view is we have this metaphor of the funnel, where everyone on earth we want to catch in the top of the funnel and to become aware of us as a company. And then as they go down the funnel, they build trust and familiarity with us. And then at the bottom of the funnel, they become a customer. That's sort of the broad terms for marketing goals. So a common pay-per-click campaign strategy would be to have different ads that focus at different people at different stages of the funnel. So at the top of the funnel, you might want someone to download a research report so they become aware of your name, basically. Then in the middle of the funnel, you might want them to attend a virtual event so they become familiar with you and you start building that trust. And then at the bottom of the funnel, you want to sell, get them to book a demo and have them book a call. But as part of a marketing strategy like this pay-per-click campaign isn't enough on its own. We need to have landing pages that collect that information. So we're paying for people to come to this page. And if the page that the ad drives them to, if the messaging on that page doesn't exactly match the messaging on the ads, you're very likely going to have them bounce, leave, and not complete that registration or that download, and you've wasted your pay-per-click dollars on that person. So the task at hand that marketers need to do is actually make, not only do you have to make the ads, but then you have to make the landing pages that match the ads. And this is actually a ton of work that to do on a basis, because if you have, depending on how many ad variants you have, you might need to make more and more different landing pages that match them. So this process traditionally, I would say, is at least hours, but potentially days, for folks to like author the content, build out the page, and especially if you have developers involved and you're missing something, that's going to be a really time-consuming approach. But now with Drupal AI Canvas, we can change this workflow. We can prompt the AI Canvas and ask it to create the page for us. And what that does is it then goes and loads the appropriate context, rules, and structure from the AI Context Control Center, and then uses that to assemble the components from the component library to actually then, some of those components, such as cards, might need images. So it's going to go and take images from your image library, put them into the components, and then actually create the page. So let's take a look at that in action. So this is a prompt to create a new landing page. So I'm in Canvas, and I'm saying, okay, let's make a new event registration landing page. I'm opening up the AI prompt. And just sort of, so here's our empty page. And the prompt's really simple. I said, can you make a landing page? Please use the photos of Cindy, because there's like 200 photos in the library. So I want those specific ones. And then I just pasted in the ad copy from the ad that we're on. I've cut a minute out of the video. It thought for a minute. This is otherwise real time. So now it's picked a hero component. It's written the titles for it. It's making a grid of cards, mapping out a section called Who Should Attend, putting in the target audience personas we want to attract to this particular event, and then wrapping up the page with a call to action block with a registration form embedded on it. So there's like a number of registration forms sort of baked into the system. I'm now switch over to preview mode in Canvas, and you can see this is a really solid landing page. Probably publishable, maybe with a few little minor tweaks to copy, but otherwise like a real home run. And that's produced in 2 minutes. I cut 1 minute out of the video. Here's another example. Again, the same kind of approach, right? We've got a report download page, so we want to get that PDF going in there. And I'm like, in this case, I'm like, I had to put in the description of the chapters, what's in the report, to include in this page copy, because there's no context for that in the system. And it's going ahead and building a landing page. It's decided to pick the picture of the cover of the report to put it in the hero image. It's, it's mapped out some key findings. We want to sort of get folks to be interested in that and go in there. Now it's making a section called What's Inside the Report. And it's using sort of different UI components to map out that page. And again, it's other than cutting a minute or, I don't know, 30 seconds to a minute, maybe a minute and a half out of it thinking before it starts, this is all real time as well. Now this build has a few little tweaks in there, like that should probably be centered, aligned, like there's, and then this blue background behind the blue background doesn't look that wonderful to me. So again, I'm doing a few stylistic changes here to just change the background color inside of there. But within a few clicks, it's looking pretty darn good. So this, frankly, this workflow and the fact that it functions, and this is not fake. It is a demo, which we'll go through, and you can download and install it and try it out yourself. This is super exciting to me that this is even possible. So out of runs, it's not, I picked some of the nicer runs to include in the video for this. But I'd run this many, many times, and I would say out of 5 runs, one just straight up fails or makes terrible pages that I would delete and start from scratch. One is excellent, like the first example we saw, and then maybe 3 might need a little tuning, like the second example we saw. It picked some formatting stuff that took me a few seconds to clean up. I might rewrite some of the copy a little bit, but regardless, it is a huge time saver from this kind of task. We put together a landing page for Foster Interactive Marketing, and it took me hours to get that landing page copy together using another system, like one of the popular software as a service landing page builder systems. So yeah, I'm very excited to roll this for ourselves in the near future. But what happens when we have our campaigns going out and say we've got 3 landing pages that match our 3 ad copies, and we're like, okay, great, let's sit down as a team and review all of our stuff together before we launch our pay-per-click campaigns. And it's like, this kind of thing happens. 80% time savings, that's last year's number. Now we use 90% time savings as the sales pitch for this particular offer. So that's annoying, right? We've got to go back and redo our copy, rechange our content to update this new like key pitch, this key fact that's part of our sales approach. But now in AI automations, we can go into the context control center and go into our fact document. And inside of here, that's where it says 80% is the time savings is the fact we want to do. I've gone ahead and changed it to 90% in the source document. And now the autonomous agents in the background can see that something has changed. It takes time. We don't want it to run like dynamically as soon as you press save. So time has passed. I've gone in here and manually run cron, which just imagine it's an automated task that happens every hour. Now it's gone and looked at all of our content and found where that fact is included in the content and created recommended drafts of revised versions of those pages where we've changed the 80% to a 90%, and it's ready for me to like map that out. So different pages, different examples inside of there. And what's really cool is it works with, like, it's not a regex kind of search thing. It's not looking for the characters 80%. If you, in earlier versions of this, one of the taglines wrote out the word save 80% of your time, it'll go in words, 80, it'll go and find that and rewrite that as well. So this is really exciting and powerful, especially if you've got like facts that need to be accurate in your website. This is kind of neat, and an approach where I can see a lot of incredibly useful use cases for folks with big complicated websites, to have this idea of like a fact checker read your content and then propose things that's misaligned with your brand view, maybe product names change, this kind of thing. There's a ton of opportunity to have this kind of system review your content and make suggestions for you over time. So let's take a look at what's under the hood. And again, I said earlier, this is an installable demo that you can run locally yourself. This is definitely dev territory. It is a fancy prototype. And what's included in that is Drupal CMS 2 with the Mercury theme, and includes Canvas with many, many patches in place. It's a little over a month old now. So like, frankly, there's a lot of work that's happened since then. So I'm excited about the near future when we won't need to run this prototype and you can just run the installable versions of all of these modules. But in addition to that, what's built into that install is a vector database for media. So the demo includes about 200 images just right inside of it. And we loaded that on purpose to make sure and test that the image selecting tool was effective. And so it's loaded with stock open source, or not open source, but whatever, royalty-free stock photography mixed in with the custom photography that it created. And when you install it, it goes through this process of actually creating text descriptions of all of the images using an image processing LLM, so that the media library has a bunch of information about each image in text that it can use to pick the right images, depending on what you're asking for. So there's a big long paragraph describing each image in there. And then finally, it comes with the AI suite with a bunch of alpha modules installed inside of there. So these are all actively getting put into sort of beta, maybe alpha releases are coming or beta releases are coming for the modules that are in play here. So when we do an install of this, there's just a couple key points that I wanted to highlight. First is that this is all tested using OpenAI GPT only. There is absolutely no reason it couldn't run on other systems. Again, Drupal AI is meant to be platform agnostic, but it's just tested in OpenAI and known to work in that case. And for this API key, you will need what's called a tier 4 API key, which means that you've spent $250 in credits and your account is more than 2 weeks old. And the reason that we need a tier 4 account is because there's throttling on how many requests you can do per minute. And when it's drawing that page, it's doing a ton of requests inside of there. You will also need DDEV to get this installed easily, and just expect some warnings as you install it. Not errors, warnings as you install it. That is normal and expected. And it takes maybe 10 minutes because it's busy making a vector database and like generating AI descriptions, 200 images. So it just expected to take a few minutes in there. So let's take a look at what happens on the AI media descriptions itself. This is the image library that's installed out of the box inside of there. Again, this is a familiar sort of media library in it. And the image that one of these generated images that I created in here, it just describes the image itself. And we had to add in that little description. She is using the FinDrop app, and this is the model Cindy. The AI does not know that. And we needed to add this information into the system, just like you would in a realistic scenario, where if you did a model shoot with someone, you would absolutely prioritize and tag those images in your media library appropriately. But you can see it works great with all of the images that have been uploaded there itself. So let's look at how the agents that render the page actually work. So again, it's similar to the flow we saw before. It starts with a user prompt, and then it triggers off what's the Canvas AI orchestration agent. Basically, this job of the job of this agent is to figure out what tasks need to be done, and then it picks which other agents it should delegate those tasks to. In this example, pretty much everything's being done by the Drupal Canvas builder agent. So that's doing all the heavy lifting in constructing this page. But that agent itself is busy loading a bunch of rules, those brand rules, the design rules from the context control center. It's also loading in rules from the component library itself. So which we'll take a look at in a minute. And it also is doing things like searching the media and finding and selecting good images. And all of that is what's used to render the outputted page. Another really important tool that's inside of here, and to even make sense of any of these interactions with all these agents working together, is using the AI logging module, which is being deprecated in favor of a module called observability that does the same type of thing. All I wanted to leave you with is every call that an agent does to an agent, or you prompt and it triggers the orchestration agent, every one of those actions is logged and tracked. And it's really important to have a tool and system like this so that you can debug things when it goes wrong. But it's also really important for us to have a system like this in any AI-enabled website so that we can use it responsibly and have a log of what happened and have responsible AI governance in our projects. So again, this is really, it's really exciting to see that it's working right now, and it's just being developed into even a more robust solution in the observability module. So this is a demo. This is an early prototype. There are a number of limitations that I should highlight. The first is pretty big. You can't chat with an existing page content. It's just like a missing component in that in that Canvas agent. So you can't say, change the top box to be like this, because it can't read that top box. So for now, it's just creating pages from scratch is all that agent can do. The second huge limitation is it's all these locked versions of Canvas and the Mercury theme and all of that. And we just needed to freeze it in time because there's so many moving parts that like dependencies and all that will end up having a poor install experience. So we just wanted to make it frozen so it reliably installs on everyone's computers. And because of that, there's a whole bunch of cool work that's been done in all of these projects, Canvas, the themes itself, all of that, which you won't see in this particular demo. And then, of course, the last issue is it requires that tier 4 open API account, which is just a frustrating barrier, to get started in this. All of these limitations are well documented, understood, and being worked on by the AI Makers Initiative. So what's the roadmap in the Drupal CMS space and what's upcoming? When are we leaving this prototype state? So Drupal CMS 2, which is primarily the main showcased feature in it, is all of this Canvas work, is scheduled for January of 2026, hopefully to align with Drupal's like 25th birthday, if I'm not mistaken. The AI module suite version 2 is also trying to target the same release date. And this is a major refactor under the hood. And there's all these cool submodules that are in the Drupal AI module, like search and chatbots and all this thing. All of those submodules are actually getting split out into their own separate projects so that you don't have to install everything all together. And there is a massive effort amongst the groups, and what my company's contribution is also focused on is improving this user experience and making sure that we have an easier setup experience, because let's be honest, everything is still too developer focused, and we need to lower the barriers of entry to get people into the Drupal space for this to all be really a success that I expect it will be. So when you run those prompts that I put in the example that we saw earlier, and you run them in a default install with nothing installed in the context control center, you get a really ugly layout. It is a page and it's ugly and it's got generic copy and it's full of hallucinations and stuff that it's made up about this product or whatever. You're like, hey, make a landing page about this. And the LLM does not have the information it needs to do a good job. And so really, I just want to emphasize that context is everything that you need to make sure you get good output. And so it's the classic garbage in, garbage out. But in our AI world, this is garbage in or nothing goes in. You're going to get garbage out or AI generated slop because it has nothing to work from. So let's dive into what some of those context sources actually look like in this demo. First, we have our component-based design system where there's actual like text descriptions of every little component and how it should be used. So I'm saying like cards versus accordions versus hero components, how those are structured. There is the context control center documents. In this example, we had 3: a value proposition document talking about the product, UI rules in general about how to structure your components, and a content strategy document that said, hey, this is what makes a good landing page, and this is how you should structure them. And then the third source of context is actually documents in the media library. So this is really kind of exciting, right? The documents that are uploaded to the media library, you saw how the images were uploaded there. They had text descriptions of them. That text description is actually vectorized and put in a vector database. So any documents you upload into the website itself as well, like text documents, like a PDF, then could be converted to text and put into a vector database as well. And what this allows the LLM to do is it can do like a quick search to be like, are there any documents in here related to something I'm trying to do? And it returns the content of that document automatically and uses that as context in what it renders. So a concrete example of this is my prompt where I put in the chapters for that fictitious report. If that document if that report actually existed and I had uploaded to the media center, I wouldn't have to add in that detail. I'd say, go and find the chapters in the document and highlight them. And I wouldn't have to write out what they are. So let's look at the component descriptions, the first kind of context I highlighted here. And you can go into this and so this is called single directory components. It's a Drupal thing where there's all of our little building blocks. And this one's for card, right? And we can describe how it's used and give it some rules, right? This one says, don't use it as a standalone component, always use it inside of a grid. Because imagine you placed a card down, it would be this gigantic card on the page, it would look strange. So they're always intended to be used inside of a grid like that. The next is the AI Context Control Center. And now we can see this in a little more detail again with a little more reference from how it's going to be used. The first one is a bunch of value proposition documents that talk about, why the product is good and what it does. The second is landing page examples of how to make a good landing page. And the third are some general rules about how to assemble components. And so let's take a look at those in more detail. On the right is the actual document that's loaded in the system. It is AI loves Markdown format, so this is just a Markdown document. I am using an editor called Typora on the Mac, which just renders Markdown files in a nice and easy to read styled way. So that's what we're looking at on the right. But it is just a Markdown file. And inside of this file, we talk about the core benefits and the audiences for this product. And it's really, we want to emphasize that it's from their point of view. We highlight some key features and facts. We include those target personas. We include some quotes that ended up getting pulled into our examples as testimonials built into the page as well, and some general rules about tone and language. It is worth noting that compared to our actual client work in this space, this document is super light compared to what we would actually see in a realistic client scenario. But again, even with just a little bit of context information, it's done a really solid job. This next document is the heavy duty one. This is the content strategy document that says, hey, this is what makes a good landing page. And this actually describes 3 different types of landing pages, each that match that stage in the funnel I highlighted earlier. And so this is super detailed, saying there should be a hero. The hero should be this kind of style of, so it's like a document download. The hero should include a picture of the report in it. And it should include a statement that has the benefits about reading the report in there. Or maybe we want to emphasize a pain point that we solve by reading the report inside of there. You can also note that this specific version, there's a bug in the existing system, which basically requires me to describe what I want from the layout using, in essence, the code that's rendered by the components. So you can see inside of here, there's these spacing elements that says, make the padding 64, which is what in Canvas, I could select a component and you see this little drop down and it says padding small, medium, and large. And so the bug is I have to actually describe what I want in the rendered output, not in the plain simple language that you see in Canvas. Again, a known bug being worked on. And once that gets solved, this will look a lot less like code and a lot more like a person describing what they want on the page. And if they want something specific, they describe, use the extra wide padding inside of there. So what's next? What is Foster Interactive focusing on as a small part of this really large initiative that the AI makers are working on? The first thing that we're really interested in is reducing the detail in the document I just showed you and rerunning the experiment until we can see how little detail is enough to get a good result. And that's going to need a bunch of iterative experiments with just to see how little we can put in and still get a good result. I also definitely want to test different LLM models. While we were working on this project, everything It's honestly, there's historical precedent within the AI ecosystem where like OpenAI is kind of the model that was easy to install. It was like, frankly, the first one that had an API that was easy to get, and it was sort of first to market. So because of all this early advanced work that was done in Drupal in this space, it just means that we all had open API keys and it was easy to install. So we just used it. And we haven't done the work to test out other systems because outside of our work inside of Drupal, I'm finding other models much more useful and exciting than OpenAI's models themselves. And so I'm very excited to try other things. So GPT has like a feel with its writing that I don't particularly love. Claude is a much better writer. Gemini is a much better writer. So I'm curious to see what happens as we systematically experiment with other models. And then we need to expand this to test out our real use cases, real client scenarios, so that we can see what happens. As I had mentioned, that those guideline documents are way shorter than what we would normally produce for our clients. So we need to test out to see what happens when we have, more stuff going into the context. I theorize at some point you'll add in too much information and the results will start getting less, lower quality results as effect of that. So you might be asking yourself, how do I actually create the quality guidelines that I need to get good AI output in Drupal AI? And some of the documents that you might consider creating are things like audience personas and value proposition statements. That'll make sure that the facts and the details that we include in the site actually resonate with your audience. You might work on some tone and voice guidelines so that the text in different parts of your website is consistent and aligned with your brand. We also need to create page level strategy. So this example was just focusing on landing pages. Even within that sort of narrow type of page building, we had 3 variations in it. And so, most websites have lots of different kinds of pages, case studies, people profiles, news, all these things would need their own different kinds of content strategy documents. And then finally, we need to make sure that we have a good design system that is versatile, that covers all the needs for the content of our pages. And then we need to write guidelines on how to use those design systems, and they kind of get embedded within them. And so the real question of how you get this is we need to start off by gathering a team of smart people and then quickly getting into doing real audience interviews, real user research, so that we can deeply understand the problems and the pain points we are positioning our organization or our product as a solution to. And then we need to sit down with our internal teams, our stakeholders, the people on the front lines answering questions, and do a bunch of workshopping to define our brand strategy and position amongst the marketplace, right? There's lots of people probably offering similar kind of solutions. We need to sit down and do a brainstorming session basically as a team sport to figure out how we're going to position ourselves to be unique in that marketplace. And based off of those 2 key ingredients, the research and the strategy and positioning work, then we can create a design system. We'll know what components we need, what kind of building blocks are necessary to tell a good story, and to put together a content strategy where once you flow out a page, it tells a narrative in the voice and in the mind of that audience that resonates with them and compels them, or at least expresses our value proposition, and they can make an informed choice about whether it makes sense for them. And when we're done all that, we need to test it again, because there's a whole bunch of assumptions about our internal team members, about the pool we happen to interview, and we have to test it and make sure that it actually works. And once we do all of this, we're creating a process where our work revolves around human insight. And that is how we get quality work output. And there's additional benefits of making our work focused on human insight. Primarily, our work will actually be authentic and distinct in the marketplace. And this is going to become more and more important as time goes on, because tools like Drupal and a whole bunch of other ones that are going to hit the marketplace or are already on the marketplace, unless you do this work, the output of it is going to be AI slob. And I think we're all seeing this in websites in the world, well, certainly on LinkedIn, where this content is getting AI generated, and it's kind of generic and kind of the same. And while this is starting as a trickle, this is going to become a deluge, like in no time. And so the organizations that are going to be successful are the ones that need to double down on this human research, on this human insight being the core of what they're doing as part of their work. So I want to leave you with two closing thoughts. And that the first is, now is the time to unlearn what you think is possible. So AI is clearly shaking things up. And in the work that I've shown you today, it was almost my own assumptions about what is possible were kind of like holding me back. I had no idea 3 months ago, before this product launched, that we would be able to do this like in this time frame. I knew eventually it would be possible, but I didn't know it was possible within 3 months. Same with the example of Nano Banana, where once that tool came in place, being able to produce this work quickly and efficiently, as fast as it was, I had no idea it was possible. But at the same time, we also need to remember that human insight cannot be outsourced to AI. If you try and do this, that is the recipe for AI slop. As we enter a world where basically everything we're going to be looking at is fake, it's going to be more important than ever to make sure that we have a real, authentic human core to our AI enhanced work. So thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for listening. And if you want to connect, please do reach out on LinkedIn. And I guess we have a few minutes for questions.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Aidan, for all of this. This is freaking crazy and
It is
very
crazy.
true.
Yeah,
3 months ago, we were talking about this, and now we are here. So it's crazy. Any questions from anyone in here?
Yeah, feel free to hop off mute or maybe pop them in the chat if you prefer.
Yes. I have a question, but I want to give an opportunity for you guys. So while someone is taking courage or something, so I can ask, but please jump. So you mentioned that you guys are working on improving the prompts and everything. So you guys have an amazing team with the AI Drupal makers. So are you guys working on some sort of evals framework in order to really evaluate the prompt, and also once we start moving from model to model to keep up with the quality of the output?
Yeah, I mean, there's many different pieces of the puzzle coming together. So it's tricky to answer the question, but within the context control center, we're doing a bunch of work like yesterday to define what is the smallest amount of context that you could need to be useful. So it's a really interesting problem, right? Because some of this context is useful for writing words. Some of this context is useful for laying out pages. Some of this context is useful for picking images. And so it's a real good challenge to figure out, how can we, got an alert on the phone, how to get the right context to the right kinds of actions that AI systems are using. So absolutely a part of that would be to systematically, run the same prompt through the different model and have something automated set up to run the same thing 20 times and then like assess the output on the back end. There are conversations that I want to have with the team about whether there's an official way to do that, or do we kind of treat it like we've got a bunch of QA automation work that we do internally as Foster Interactive. So like, should we treat it like a QA automation, or should we use a formal structure? I don't have an answer for that right now, but I definitely, it's definitely on my mind to talk around with the broader AI group.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've been looking into the OpenAI evals framework. So for that one, and we have Rob, our very own Rob. Open your mic.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Aidan. Really, really cool stuff. I'm so excited to see how far it has come. The primary goals for this demo was facilitating the Dries note and getting the tight integration with Drupal Canvas. What
Yeah.
other integrations do you see as being really impactful going into next year?
I mean, Context Control Center being it's got to be the hub of like being able to like maintain content at scale across your website, comply, like just think about multiple authors and being able to review whether author A or author B's content aligns with your tone and voice language, inclusive language guidelines, whatever. That is really exciting to me personally, but like it's just the beginning, right? Like because the context doesn't just have to be a document in your website. What if your context was something external? What if it's coming from your analytics software or being used to personalize your website experience, where we could start using things like this to make variants of, say you generate variants of the landing pages we saw dynamically or programmatically, and then do A/B testing to optimize them within the website itself. These things are all going to be possible. And my initial reaction is like, oh yeah, maybe in a year or something. But every time I've said in a year or something, it's happened a heck of a lot faster
Next week.
than I imagined. Yeah, it's like it happened a lot faster. So I'm normally trying to be like a little bit pessimistic or like under promise and over deliver. But I guess maybe I should start like I'm just wrong by a year like every time. It's happening in a year less than I expect. So I'm excited to
Awesome.
see these these opportunities happen.
Amazing. We have a question here. So on the chat. So can you share a little bit of a cost
Yeah.
per prompt that, per landing page? Let's say that when you're running those 5 landing pages, what is your average cost on your API?
25, maybe 25 cents on GPT 4.1. I do a lot of testing on this to
Yeah.
get those prompts together and probably generated, I don't know, like 30 or 40 pages in a day. And that was $10 on my worst day.
Wow.
So, and it was like timing out and doing weird things. So that could have been
Mhm.
burning tokens too.
Yes. That's amazing. $10 for a full day of testing landing pages and everything, right?
Yeah.
So this is
Now,
just insane.
yeah, GPT 4.1. Now, personally, I think Claude will do a much better job than GPT might. And Claude is way more expensive. But from my point of view, an expert's time, saving that time to be able to create that page, if it cost $5 a page generation, I'd be happy because it's saving so much time and effort elsewhere.
Exactly. Yeah. So final call. We have 1 minute. Any questions or anything, you can pop on a chat in here. If not, we'll wrap this up. Unless Aidan, you have some final comments or anything.
No, I think that I'd invite everyone to check out and join us on Slack. In the Drupal Slack, there's a number of AI related channels, and they're all really exciting. So whatever interests you, jump over there. If you're just starting, just lurk and watch and see and sort of absorb there. But I would also, hope that becomes a gateway to put in requests and ideas and participate, because this is really different. Like Drupal having a product vision and all these different companies working together towards that single product vision. It's never really happened in Drupal before. And I think it's going to be a really powerful force because and it's funny, we have to do it because these products out there are well funded and focused. And so what we can accomplish by remaining open, it's just such an exciting opportunity to be like, hey, I want to switch from GPT to Anthropic like that, and then test out the outputs, or maybe switch to our own private models. It's so exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next year.
That's amazing. Thank you very much, Aidan. So what really stuck me here with the Drupal is the first thing that got me into Drupal 20 years ago was the modularity of a Drupal. And the Drupal is doing that again with not only with the companies like you and other companies working together as modules, but also the way you guys are approaching AI as modules as well. So creating this really separating all the concerns and everything, so each part can be working by itself. So
Perfect.
awesome. We are out of time. Thank you very much, everyone. Really looking forward to see you guys again in January in person, and then of course online again when we go into February.
Perfect. Yeah, there's a couple questions that came up in the chat.
Oh,
So
do you want to still respond? Do you guys have time?
yeah, one was how do you get on the Drupal Slack? I think you can just sign up for Drupal Slack yourself, and then the AI channel, you just have to search for hashtag AI. So that's how you
Correct.
could join it there. And then the question about can you swap models? In the prototype, just the OpenAI provider is the only one that's installed. You could just install the Claude one and switch the providers and run the demo. We just didn't have enough time to test that, so that's absolutely possible inside of there. So
That's
perfect.
right, because it's using the model module, which then you can add multi-modals in there, right?
Yeah, different it's providers. So you install the
Providers, yes,
provider
that's what it is. Yeah.
for the AI suite.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Take care. Have a great rest of your day or morning or evening, wherever you are. Thank you and take care.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great one.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.